Hello there folks, and welcome to round 7, the final round in the Big Bang Qualifiers. Today, in blue on the North Pole, we have AndreasG from the Realm, facing off on the South against Burntcustard in orange, going vehicles first, interestingly enough. Andreas, however, going bots first, interesting. Following that up with power, then possibly a second factory before the mechs. Maybe the mech second, there we go, yeah. Meanwhile, Custard on the south is assisting out of Faber just a little bit, getting some mechs. Obviously going for the efficiency there. Going to send the fabricator to go and get the mechs. And then, what's queued up that radar? Is that fabricator going to do it? Interesting. So, both of these players, very strong players. As far as I'm aware, Custard, top player since Alpha. AndreasG as well, quite a strong player now. I don't know the rank and division, so I can't make a comment on that. But both are pretty good. So this is going to be a good game, I hope. All that I can do now is watch with you guys. Maybe try and entertain you along the way. So, going vehicle second rather than air, because then again this is forge, so air takes a little bit of a back seat compared to vehicles. Now, bots tend to be more prolific early games simply because you get them everywhere and they get in the cracks and they are a right pain for expanding fabricators. However, if you play slightly more defensively, as Custard is doing here, and get vehicles up, while those bots around the planet aren't going to be doing the work that they were meant to be doing, you will get more docks over time, and you will have to fight to get those expansion spots in the first place, rather than fighting to defend them or to replace them. So it creates an interesting change of pace from normal. Usually what I do when I play on this is I rush vehicles and I play really aggressively and then force the opponent to respond to my aggression so that they're not worrying too much about the expansions, by which point I've expanded, and the game flows from there like that. So going on, we can see, you know, these docks sort of guarding these expansion points here, as you'd expect from these docks to be doing. Tanks though going around, just setting up. I'd expect one to maybe get to a choke point here just to guard these six. These six are really important, as are the sort of shoulder mechs over here that I like to talk about. You've got that shoulder and this shoulder here. This one usually quite a good area that people tend to build in. Which, you know, there we are. And eventually you will go up the middle. Maybe get rid of the cliffs there. So, transitioning to vehicles now from Andreas, who's probably seen that Custard was going vehicles, as we can see there with the Firefly. You see how small this planet is by just how much vision the Firefly gets you. You only need to sit it on the other side of the mountain, and it gets you all of that vision, and he can see quite how strong the vehicle play is, how strong the airplay is, so far as it's just one factory. Really well played by Custard there, nicely arranged base. Means he hasn't had to walk at all, and the only walking he's done is to make way for another building, so that's good. He's got 75 metal and he's not worrying too much about that at the moment, so that's not too bad, and he's not stalling, so that's fine. The only thing is, Andreas is getting the expansion simply because he knows that Custard is playing slightly more defensively. The problem is with that though, eventually these vehicles do pack more of a punch than the docks. Ergo, I would expect Andreas to switch up to Grenadiers. That is what he's doing right now. I know that Grenadiers now are really quite good against vehicles, simply because they have the range, they have the arcing shots, they have the turn speed and all that jazz, and as long as they kite and stay out of range of the vehicles, they are a really good counter to vehicles from what I've heard. And especially with their splash damage, it means that if Custard does try to go bots, which he probably won't do. Why would you go from vehicles to bots on a map like Forge? You've got to go, you know, on a tiny map like this, you've got to make your choice and stick with it. You can't really be too concerned about what you do. I mean, you can go bots to vehicles, but I don't know about going vehicles to bots. It's It's a really strange way of doing things. Especially when you have enough vehicle factories like this, you know, you're just going to pump out vehicles and vehicles and just play aggressively. Like up here, these are going to meet that commander. The commander's going to fight them off. Custard's going to then retreat if he has any forces left. Maybe go around the side and take these mechs out instead of pressing straight onto the commander. In fact, that's probably what he's going to do. Let's see. Has he scouted it? Yes, he has. He's going to see the commander there. He's not going to go in because the commander's really good early game defense there, so you don't want to really do anything about that. There's the Uber cannon that he was going to try and dodge, and he did that by moving his units into different locations, sort of splitting them up a little bit. Not only that, but he managed to do a fair bit of damage to that commander, more so than you'd expect, down to 82% from Andreas. That's quite a bit of damage for this early in the game, and now Custard has vehicles in all the expansion sites down the eastern side of the map. What a turning of the tables from what I expected was be from the bot play. So the bots don't have omnipotence. The vehicles do. And that's bad for Andreas, because now Andreas needs to build up his tank forces or his grenadier forces. Ideally both. He has a bunch of grenadiers here, but they're not very good in the middle of the base. They need to be elsewhere. I suppose at this point maybe he's worrying about an Inferno drop, but the likelihood of that is not great considering he hasn't seen too much airplay. Now that he has, he might be slightly more worried about it. And with Custard's air scout here, he might have reason to be so, especially with the Pelicans. There they are, and there's the Infernos. So we'll probably see a drop of maybe 10 Infernos. I was with Custard in stream earlier, and we were talking about, you know, at what point would be good to do an Inferno drop. Early in the game, you can maybe rush 4 or 5. This sort of stage of the game, you at least want 10 to make a dent. And what you also want to do at the time that you do your Inferno drop is make sure that you've goaded your opponent's base defences out of his base. But I think Andreas is playing savvily here and is aware of the threat. He's got the interceptors there waiting to do just that, and intercept. So they'll be fine. Custard going in again, scouting to see what's up. Going to be able to maybe take out a bomber there. He does. He won't take out an interceptor, but now maybe Andreas is alerted to that increasing fact of the Inferno drop. Meanwhile, however, the main attack is going to be down here. We've got a whole bunch of docks as cannon fodder, and I think that might help Andreas here insofar as this matchup, but we've got still a large, surprisingly large amount of spinners from Custard, considering that Andreas doesn't really have too much air. I suppose every little helps, but at this point you really just want that push to go in. And here's the Infernos getting ready to drop. Could this be the deal sealer right here in the back door? This is the strength of Custard's place. He's got a large number of interceptors there ready to clear the way. Let's see Andreas. What can he see? Has he got the radar? Yes, he has. No, he hasn't. Yes, he has. It's right there. In come the units now. He can see those. He's been distracted on the front. In come the interceptors first. How many Infernos is he going to lose? He lost one there. Maybe a second one. He only managed to get 3 down. Wow. That's not great. That wasn't great compared to what we were really wanting and expecting from an Inferno drop there. Those really won't be doing too much, especially with all those Grenadiers there against those Infernos. They are pretty damn good. And it doesn't necessarily require a whole bunch of units coming back from the front lines. Meanwhile, we've got fights going on this line here. Custard still hasn't got any scratches on his paintwork, and he's managed to repel that attack. Meanwhile, Andreas, down to 79% from 82, has managed to repel the attack on this front. Looking at the army tab there, we're back to even Stevens. Andreas with 2 more factories as he pushes out with his commander into the midfield. A random bomber there doing a little bit of scouting, I suppose. More bombers over here. I really do think that Custard has too many spinners at this point. Go spinners or interceptors on Forge. I don't think both are necessitated. But anyway. Now here. This is exactly what the Grenadiers are for. When your tanks don't have line of sight, your Grenadiers can shoot over your mountainous outcroppings and wreck your dudes. Of course, as you get the line of sight back, you then start to get your advantage of the vehicles back, but still, I mean, they just went straight around that, but they were taking heavy losses around the sides. I mean, look at all those scorch marks there. And they're not going to do too much damage when they get in the base, because they're just taking continual shots from the Grenadiers there. So, they took down 3 mechs, yeah. not much else. And looking at the unit tab now, Custard is down by 20 units. Andreas can now push in from the side just a little bit, taking out a mechs there, a few units, and may as well pull this way. There's no need to go into the main base with a force that small, because you know you're not going to get anywhere. Going back this way, he will meet a defensive turret that will go up in time. A second one might go up, depends on the plan. No, the walls are planned. Okay, so he's going to come in from the side, so it won't matter anyway. And the spinners will be laser turret fodder, which is good. That'll give the tanks a chance to shoot at them without taking losses. Down goes the fabricator, down goes the turret, and free reign on the mechs. Good. So Custard loses 4 mechs there. Back to the economy tab so we can see quite where the balance lies. Andreas has far more mechs, and he's continuing to push out with his commander in the mid as well, with lots more factories. Back to the army tab there for a second. Still 2 more factories, 12 to 10. So it's still good, and Custard continuing to be raided there. So it seems as though Custard's play for the Inferno drop and heavy spinner ratio has cost him a bit of map control here, because he just doesn't have the units that do the damage. And those Grenadiers, though, they are so good, and Custard knows this. He's even started to build some of his own. So, you know, fight fire with fire, as the saying goes. And with any luck, that'll be good. The commander probably wants to build some walls over here, just in case, because that's a sizable force and can take down a large chunk of that comms health. The alternative, of course, is boombots. But we probably won't see boombots going for a while, because the commanders aren't going to be in a situation where they are unprotected. And yes, there's the come with his walls. This force from Andreas is going to be a right nuisance. The Pelter incoming. Commander taking a bit of damage there, though, down to 97, 96. But the walls there really saving this defense. Look at that. Absolute wrecking of that defense. However, this whole side of Custard is gone. Custard is wiped back to a very small enclave, relatively speaking. And Army Tab is really not looking good. In fact, Andreas has come out on top here, because of the way Custard's played this, and late getting to the Grenadiers, and a few poor moves insofar as he hasn't been raiding, he hasn't been keeping up on the aggression, and Andreas has just had the units in the right places, waiting for Custard to come to him, knowing he has the defensive advantage with the Grenadiers. And that's paid off, I think, with Andreas not being overzealous, and as I say, waiting for the Grenadiers to pay off for their defensive advantage. Now he can push in down the undefended side, while the remaining units from Custard push out this way. Custard's going to be very aggressive with his commander here. This could get him in a bit of trouble. There's a number of Grenadiers here, and all they need to do is see this commander on radar, which they don't, and move in that general direction. But the commander's going to get away. I wouldn't be surprised if the commander maybe moves over here, but we'll have to see what goes on with that commander. But the mainstay of Custard's base now is probably going to be toast. He still has too many spinners in the equation. I don't get it. I don't. Although, now this is an interesting one. Moving all your units inside the factory, so the factories take the damage. Maybe a bit more micro is needed, because otherwise you're not really doing a favourable engagement there. And he doesn't have the Grenadiers in this force anyway to shoot over the factory, so it's a moot point anyway. But there you can see, you know, the differences that Grenadiers make when you put them into your composition. And now Andreas has found the commander. All of his units can probably start to circle over there. In comes the air, just scouting to make sure. Bombers try to get off. I don't know what he was trying to do with a single bomber. A single bomber is never going to take down a commander. No way, Jose. Not going to happen. Custard's base, though, is in wreck and ruin. Custard's unit count is 100 below Andreas's. Not great. And almost half of Andreas's income. It's not looking good. And on a map like Forge, if you get that much of a lead on your opponent that Andreas has over Custard at the moment, the likelihood is that's going to snowball and propagate through the rest of the game. So unless Custard can do some really good work now and pull something out of the hat, I fear this might be GG, especially as the units from Andreas start to close in on Custard on the other side of the map. The last resort I would say Custard has right now is to make his last bastion of defense this raised area here, or these 6 mechs. And in fact, he has conceded the GG there. He knows that was the end of the game. That was a shame. It was good and interesting builds, and seeing the difference that Grenadiers can make has convinced me of their power now. I think I'll start using them a bit more if people are going vehicles against me. But yeah, I think Custard's play for the Inferno drop was probably what cost him the game most, as well as his spinner composition, combined with pushing into a defensive position of Grenadiers. It's an interesting one, and a lot of lessons can be learned from that, so that's good. Now, thanks again for watching, folks. I do hope you've enjoyed these videos. I do apologise again if there's been background noise, or if my casting hasn't been up to par as it was. I don't know whether that's the case or not. That's not for me to judge. But I have been out of PA. I haven't really had time to really sort out my audio and everything. I got thrown into the casting today, but I've enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. So without further ado, I will sign off. Thanks again for watching, folks, and as always, see you next time, and have a nice day. You can see the naval coming in. Unfortunately, it is going to meet a torpedo launcher. It's going to lock it down just a little bit. It's going to be close to see. Are they going to stop before they get there? No, I think that torpedo is going to get up just in time, especially now that the narwhals come out in front to soak some of the damage. Good choice from those narwhals. Moving in, the torpedo launcher gets up and is putting in the work. Look at that. Bomber's coming in as well. Not what you want to do against narwhals. That is a needless waste of a bomber. But still, lock down that entire naval force that would probably be taking Bob Chaos's production for the best part of, I would say, 5 minutes. It's all just gone in a matter of seconds. And of course, that's bottled in at a choke point. So now, having invested 3 naval factories